Hey there, welcome back friends. Today we will discuss about throw and throws keywords, and here is a documentation provided by oracle.com where we have the list of all the keywords. Now in here, if we check, there are two keywords which are throw and throws. Now how to use these two keywords are little different. Let me show you. And in here, in order to understand what exactly is this throw and throws, we need to add a method in our class. So let's add it. So in here we would be adding a new public method. This won't return anything. It would be also a static method so that we can access the method easily, and the name of the method would be like some method. Alright, and that's it. Now this method could be called easily. In here, let me add a statement which is a sysout statement, and it would be like a message from some method. Alright, so in our main method, if we call this particular what we say some method, then what would be outcome? Definitely we would be printing this message on the console. Let me show you. Alright, so here is the output, which is the expected output. Now finally, let us proceed further and let's check yet another object. Now this object is used to read a file. How to handle a file operation is something which we will see in detail in a separate section, but as of now, do understand that we have a class by the name of file reader. This is already available to us, and the package is java.io. io means input output. Alright, the name of the object would be, for example, n equals new file reader, and we will pass on the path of the file. The file is not available as of now, so the name of the file would be like file.txt. This is simply a name in order to complete the call to the constructor. That's it. Now as soon as we do this, there is a error. Now in here, if I tell you, there is no syntax related error, but somehow we are not able to proceed further because of this error. If I hover upon this, it will say unhandled exception type file not found exception. Now in here we are not making use of anything, but there is some kind of exception. Java is explicitly throwing an exception, and we have to handle an exception whenever we make use of a constructor of file reader class. Now the reason is pretty simple, because the constructor explicitly throws an exception. Now in here there are two solutions. These are add throws declaration and surround with try catch. Let me go with the second solution. This particular solution of making use of try catch is something which we already know. Now in here, let me do one thing. Let me add on a statement, and this statement would be like a message from catch block. Right? And now if I execute the program, the output would be a message from catch block, message from some method. Okay, this is cool. But if I undo the changes and choose the other way around, in here add throws declaration, then what will happen? In here, as soon as I make this change, throws keyword would be used and a class name would be used. Now this class name is a child of exception class. So whenever we throw, the throw would be type of exception. It could be user defined exception, or it could be already available exception. How we define a user defined exception is something which we will see in our forthcoming video. Now in here, this is a specific exception which is file not found exception. We can also make use of exception class, which is the mother for file not found exception. Again, our program will work properly and there is no error in our some method. Now let me undo the changes. Alright, now friends, as soon as we throw an exception, a magical thing has happened. In here, initially the call to some method was not throwing any exception, there was no issue, but now it is giving us an error, and the error is unhandled exception type file not found exception. If I change the exception type, let me change the exception type and then hover upon this, the message will change a little. A message is changed and it is now unhandled exception of type exception. Now the reason is, whenever we throw a exception or in the declaration we make use of this throws exception, then what happens is that our method will throw an exception, and that exception needs to be handled where we are calling the method. So we are calling the method some method inside our main method, so it becomes mandatory to handle the exception or throw the exception further. Alright, so in here the throws keyword is used to throw the exception furthermore. We are simply throwing the exception outside the method, which is cool. Now the concept of throws and the concept of exception handling would be further clarified in the section where we will discuss input output operation, which is cool. And the concept of exception handling is definitely a tricky thing, and eventually you will able to understand this when you will practice more. So definitely practice a lot, and programming is like art. More you practice, more you will gain out of it. Now throws keyword is something which we have seen, but there is a yet another keyword which is known as throw. Now when to make use of throw keyword? Throw keyword is used to declare a exception. So in here, let me get rid of this declaration, and in here now if I call the sum method, let me get rid of this as well, then definitely there is no exception, right? So in here if I execute, the message is message from some method, which is cool. Now in here we are not making use of file reader anymore, and there is no exception occurred, and our program is executing properly. Now if we want to create a exception explicitly, then we may make use of this particular keyword throw. Let me show you. In here if we want to throw a exception explicitly, then we will make use of throw and then object of exception class or object of any class which is child to exception class. So in here we will make use of file not found exception class. Let me show you. Here we go. And whenever we make use of the throw keyword, we need to call in the constructor of the class. So in here definitely we are calling in the constructor of the class. Now if we check this line, then it will say unreachable code. Why? Because definitely as soon as this particular line of code will get execute, a exception would be thrown, and as the exception is thrown, no statement after this statement, throw statement, will get executed. As a result, there is a error. So let me cut this statement from here and paste it before the throw keyword, and now everything will work properly. In here firstly we will be printing out what we say message from some statement, but there would be a crash. Now let me do one more thing. Let me get rid of this throws keyword. As soon as we do this, handling the exception becomes mandate. So let me handle it with try catch block, and definitely in here we can add in a message. Message would be catch block of main method. Alright, so let me show you whether we are getting this or not. Here we go, message from some method and then catch block of main method. So everything is working properly. Moreover, in here, let me again specify the importance of hierarchy. In here, for example, if I throw a exception of exception type, then what will be the outcome? In here, we are throwing file not found exception, and in here at line number 18, we are throwing a exception type. Now friends, this particular scenario will definitely create a issue. If we hover upon this particular error, it will say unhandled exception of type exception, and the reason is pretty simple. A child class cannot handle a parent class exception. So this is the reason. A child class, which is file not found exception in our case, cannot handle a parent class exception, which is exception in this case. So definitely we need to undo the changes in order to fix the issue, but definitely we can do it other way. In here, if we throws a exception of parent class, then there won't be any issue and our declaration of the method would be perfect. But somehow in here there is again a error, because in here we are not handling the exception type. So in order to fix this, we need to simply add a catch clause. Here we go, and our issue will be vanished. Let me copy this line of statement and paste it in here, and in bracket let me add in a specifier which is exception. Alright, so everything is cool now, and let me execute this, and here is the output. Message from some method, catch block of main method. And the reason why we are executing this particular block, because we are sending in and throwing in file not found exception. Now in here, if I throw exception type, definitely this particular catch block will get executed. Let me show you. Here we go. So the other block, this last block, is getting executed. So this is cool how throws and throw keyword works, and definitely practice is required in order to understand this concept. So do practice, do play around programming. Programming is an art. You need to practice in order to conquer your target. Thanks for watching. Take care.